And something I think people need to understand about the police is that in a way, they have the same code that a gang does. In that above all, you are loyal to your crew. That is a culture that is within every police department. And that's the heart of this issue.
I've been listening to everything that's been going on. I've been listening to the commentators. I've been listening to editorials. I've been listening to opinions, comments, just as most of everyone else within the United States and around the world about injustice, everything going on within the police department. And in George Floyd's case, it shows in the officer that had his knee upon his neck that he had several complaints against him before this one incident. And questions have been asked by leaders, from all aspects, to activists, the media, all come to ask a question: how can this happen? And I want to share something with you all on how it happens within the system. This is on a police brutality case where it went from a chokehold to a beating across the head with a flashlight. This came a couple of years after Rodney King was beat and all the protests and everything, and changes were going to come, and they were going to make new policies and reform and this, that, and the third. Now, this particular officer, Lisa Dawn Allen, before she placed me in a chokehold and beat me with a flashlight, as I held my daughter in my arms and my son in my arms standing next to me. This shows the mental state of officers that has the tendency to do things like this. This shows that all officers didn't join the force to beat black people. I'm not going to read, it's a 22-page document. I'm not going to read all 22 pages. I just want to show you some specifics. There is a certain committee that is within most police forces in communities. And this committee is a personnel concern committee. It's called the Personnel Concern Unit. And it may have different titles within different, again, police forces. And what it is, it recognize and try to come to a resolution when they see officers have behavioral problems. And this particular officer had these problems and was brought up against internal affairs for at least the minimum of 4 times. Minimum of 4 times. It shows where her... Well, let's just read what some of the officers said about her. Now, this is some of her personnel history when she was a Houston police officer. She became an officer in August of 1982. Lisa Dawn Allen became a police officer for the city of Houston. 1982 now. As early as 1984, Allen had been investigated by the Internal Affairs Division of the Houston Police Department no less than 4 times. A number of citizen-initiated complaints. Furthermore, Allen's fellow officers were reluctant to handle police calls with her and even more hesitant to provide her backup assistance. Allen had a reputation of becoming combative and overly aggressive with complainants. She was known, according to some officers, as pouring gasoline on a fire. Allen also remained in constant conflict with particular supervisors in her chain of commands. Especially Lieutenant Bruce D. Williams. Now, I don't know if he's still with the force or not. But over time, Allen's supervisors believed that she was in need of corrective behavior training. On July 14, 1984, Sergeant C.S. Bloomberg wrote to then Chief Samuel M. Nucci, the then Chief of Police of the Houston Police Department. Sergeant Bloomberg advised Chief Nucci, inter alia, that because of Allen's reoccurring negative performance pattern and her problem interacting with the public, she should be evaluated for placement in the Personal Concern Program. Now, this is the Personnel Concern Program. It involves administrative procedures to identify negative behavior patterns in police officers and a program to assist the officers, supervisors, in developing strategies to reverse these patterns. The Personnel Concern Program is a step-oriented process. Either a supervisor via the chain of command or the chief of police identifies an officer for placement in the program. The Personnel Concern Unit then conducts an investigation of the officer's employment history. The result of the investigation or the results of the investigation are reduced to a Personnel Concern report that is forwarded to the Personnel Concern Committee. Based on the information contained in the report, the Personnel Concern Committee makes a recommendation to the Chief of Police as to whether the officer should be required to enter the program. Okay. Now, 3 other of Allen's supervisors, Lieutenant, again, I don't know if these people are still with the Houston Police Department or not. Lieutenant Bruce Z. Williams, Captain T.A. Bullock, and Assistant Chief T.W. Shane shared Sergeant Bloomberg's concerns and endorsed the recommendation letter. Chief Nucci promptly acted on Sergeant Bloomberg's recommendation. On August of 10th of 1994, the chief forwarded Sergeant Bloomberg memorandum to the Personnel Concern Unit and instructed the unit to evaluate Allen's work performance. The execution of this order, however, was hardly immediate because of other concerns related to Allen. On August 31st of 1995, Sergeant Charles D. Williams of the Personnel Concern Unit and Assistant Chief Joe L. Brashear, then head of the Personnel Concern Committee, met with Sergeant Will Robinson and Michael Durden with an attorney from the Legal Officers Behavioral an attorney from the Legal Services Unit of the Houston Police Department. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss whether Sergeant Bloomberg's recommendation should be acted upon in light of certain legal developments. Earlier, on about August 5th of 1994, Allen had filed complaints against the City of Houston with both Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the Texas Commission for Human Rights. Listen to this. Human rights. Allen's attorney, Murray McLaughlin, had informed Durden that the complaints were administrative precursors to a title of gender discrimination suit against the city. He further stated that one of Allen's charges of discrimination related to Bloomberg's recommendation, the recommendation for her to seek help, and that her deferral from the Personnel Concern Program could facilitate a settlement of suit. During the August 31st, 1994 meeting, the 3 officers and 1 attorney agreed that because Allen had complained to Sergeant Bloomberg, recommendation was discriminatory and subsequent in the Personnel Concern Program would be perceived as retaliation. The group also agreed that the concerns raised in Sergeant Bloomberg's recommendations were personality-oriented rather than disciplinary-oriented. Thus, general consensus of the group was that a change in supervision would be the best course for getting Allen on the right tracks. In light of this consideration, Durden, as a legal counsel for the Houston Police Department, concluded that it would be best to offer Allen a settlement agreement. If Allen agreed to drop her discrimination charges, she would be permitted to transfer to any unit within the South or West Side Command of Houston Police Department. If Allen accepted the transfer, she would not be investigated by the Personnel Concern Unit. If Allen refused to transfer, however, the Personnel Concern investigation would move forward. Next, Durden contacted Chief Nucci and informed him of Allen's discrimination charges and terms of the proposed settlement agreement. Durden further advised the chief that offering Allen a transfer and electing to forego the concerned investigation was the best action to take to prevent her from pursuing discrimination charges further. Chief Nucci agreed and ratified and proposed the settlement agreement. Sergeant Williams made a notation to Allen's personnel file dated August 31st, 1984, which documented the terms of the proposed settlement. Thus, as of August 1994, Allen was no longer a candidate for the Personnel Concern Program. The information, however, was not effectively communicated to the Personnel Concern Unit. The unit ultimately proceeded with its investigation of Allen some 13 months later. The reason for the delay or in the timing of the investigation is not clear from the record before us. So you see, instead of seeking her help, she found a way out by filing a discrimination. And instead of dealing with that, well, let her file one. She needs help. They decide to send her somewhere else. How many lieutenants? How many? Now, this was September of 95. Officer Edna Neal. After the 13 months, she officially started the investigation on September the 30th in 1985, only to have the administrative process derailed for the second time. When Durden learned that the Personnel Concern Unit had proceeded with the investigation, he contacted Chief Nucci. Durden reiterated the terms of the August 31st, 1984 proposed settlement to the chief and advised him to stop the investigation. Consequently, in a letter dated October the 27th, 1995, Chief Nucci advised the Personnel Concern Unit that Allen was no longer a candidate for the Personnel Concern Program. By this time, Neal's investigation of Allen was substantially complete, and she had complied for a personnel concern report on Allen when Nucci withdrew Allen as a candidate from the program. However, he was neither aware of the personnel concern report nor its contents. He didn't even care to look at what they said about her. Although the chief was guided by legitimate departmental concern, the matter in which he attempted further settlement of Allen's discrimination suit would not be without consequences. Because in the early mornings hours of November the 23rd of 1995, this officer was called to a family disturbance. Okay? Now, other officers had came out to this disturbance. And an Officer Cortez radioed the dispatcher and advised her to slow other units down. Cortez explained that the situation was under control, a weapon was involved, and Cortez turned to question someone else that was at the scene. Officer Johnson arrived on the scene, followed by another officer, Charles Overstreet, Tracy Mosley. After a quick briefing, the officers all agreed that the situation had been sufficiently neutralized. So that the disturbance call could be used further trained. That they were training a new police officer. This was this woman's first time out. Officer Mosley. Allen was the last officer to make the scene. Upon her arrival, she assumed that I was the suspect and approached me in a confrontational way. Cortez quickly intervened and briefed her and told her, no, it was under control. We got this. Let's stop. Allen's initial hostile reaction to LaCroix was only to prelude to the conduct that followed. She went further to call me a liar and stirred things up. While it states that at that time I was upset, I was crying, I was carrying my 4-year-old daughter in my arms, my son stood at my side. They continued to question me about what was going on. This officer walked towards me and immediately started to frisk me. She grabbed me by my shirt, told me to calm down, or she was going to take my fucking ass to jail. Allen then asked Mosley to search me. Mosley reiterated that I was not the suspect, but the complainant. Notwithstanding Mosley's clarification, Allen grabbed me. I tried to pull away. A struggle ensued, whereby Allen placed me in a chokehold. I had difficulty breathing. I could not even speak. I broke away by biting, as it stated, Allen ensued whereby placed LaCroix in a chokehold. LaCroix had difficulty breathing and broke the chokehold by biting Allen's left thumb. It was actually in the web between the thumb and the index. She retaliated, beat me with a police issued flashlight, striking me over repeatedly my head 10 to 15 plus times. She yelled several more profane words to me. During the course of the assault, I dropped my baby. She made no effort, however, to defend herself other than attempting to shield her head from the blows. There's nothing else I could do. The beating ended with Allen arresting me for resisting arrest and aggravated assault on a peace officer. The peace officer. The peace officer. This is why I couldn't look at you all in telling this story. They took me to Houston City Jail. They refused to admit me because of the head injuries. They said they wasn't going to touch me. Then they had to take me to the hospital. Suffered a small midline bifrontal scalp hematoma from the assault, bruises on her hand. I had a gash in my hand, a detached retina. Face was disfigured. Scar in my forehead. That whenever I look at every day is a reminder. But the officer, the new officer that was on the force, if it wasn't for her, I don't know if the other officers would have said anything. So in January of 1986, Mosley reported what happened to Internal Affairs, and she was relieved of duty, pending the outcome of a formal investigation. The Internal Affairs investigation concluded Allen subjected Lacroix to official oppression and violation of the Texas Penal Code. .03. She violated 2.3 of the Houston Police Department rules and manuals when she used profanity while speaking about me. She made false statements to Internal Affairs regarding the assault. They dismissed charges against me 2 days before my birthday, and then filed charges on her. June 4th, she was terminated, but she was relieved of duty without pay. August, she was indicted. One count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And they placed it as a third-degree felony offense. One count of official oppression. Right before trial, she pleaded no contest. So you see, there are procedures that they have to go through. But if part or wanting to do the right thing, and the higher ups, because of a discrimination lawsuit, or for whatever reasons they have over their heads, or what would look better I have to stop. I'm sorry. I have to stop.